All right, Podcast PD watchers, we are live in living color. We're going to be doing episode 146 of the podcast tonight. Thank you for joining us live. Leave a comment where you're watching. If you're checking us out on LinkedIn, maybe come over to YouTube, podcastpd.com/live. If you're already on YouTube watching us, make sure you drop a hello where you're from. And we're looking forward to bringing you a great conversation tonight with Walter McKenzie. AJ got a great guest for us. So we are going to get started. AJ, anything before we get going?
Let's start the show, man. Let's do this thing.
All right. Stephanie Scrocky said, hey, guys, so that means it's time to start.
The boss is here.
All right. The boss is here. Here we go. Coming up on episode 146 of Podcast PD, we are talking with Walter McKenzie, and we're going to learn a whole lot about supporting leaders in education. Let's start the show. This is Podcast PD, the show that provides you with anytime, anywhere professional development. Our conversations and guests will provide you with the learning you might get in a faculty meeting or on a PD day. Except you're going to have more fun with AJ Bianco and me, Chris Nessie. Let's start the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, Podcast PD people. My name is Chris Nessie, at Mr. Nessie on Blue Sky, because that's a thing now. And I am joined by the Podcast Paisano, AJ Bianco. What's up, buddy?
What is going on, Christopher? It is wonderful to be recording another episode of Podcast PD, man. I feel like it's been a long time. Like, I know it was last month, but it's been a long time.
It has been a while because one of the two of us doesn't text the other one regularly.
Well, you should really respond to my text messages when I talk to you.
You know what? I will shoulder the blame.
Thank you. I think he's talking about me, everybody.
You doing good, my friend?
I'm doing. We are approaching the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States. In New Jersey, we have 2.5 days this week. So
you're excited for 2.5 days of bell-to-bell instruction?
I am excited for 2.5 days of bell-to-bell instruction, and I'm excited to eat on Thursday because, you know, that's what we do.
That's what we do.
It's pretty sad that my favorite holidays are Thanksgiving and 4th of July because there's food involved.
What about Christmas and Easter?
I love Christmas, but there's not like a lot of food. Like, it's presents.
Oh, then you're doing Christmas wrong.
Oh, well, you know, the Italian way is always food, but it's okay. I'd rather have the Thanksgiving food because it's like a mixture of stuff. Sometimes you get a little lasagna, sometimes you get a little pasta, sometimes you get a little turkey. Christmas is fishes. 7 fishes.
I am not that hardcore in my Italianness.
And that's what we do, and that's why. And there you go. That's the problem.
There you go. Hello to Stephanie Scrocky checking us out on YouTube. In case you didn't know, those of you listening after this comes out as a podcast, we do this live roughly on the last Sunday of the month at 9 o'clock Eastern time. And Stephanie is a loyal listener and executive producer of the podcast. So thanks for checking it out, Stephanie. We appreciate what you do for us. All right, AJ, we've got a great conversation set up tonight. So why don't you introduce the guest, and then I will bring the guest out or on.
Let's do it. Today on Podcast PD, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to welcome Walter McKenzie, an experienced leader in education with a career dedicated to empowering educators and driving meaningful change. From leading district technology initiatives to building professional learning communities at ASCD, Walter has consistently focused on supporting educational leaders to unlock the potential of their teams and students. We are excited to welcome Walter to the podcast. Walter, welcome to Podcast PD, my friend. How are you doing tonight?
Great, AJ. Thanks for having me. Chris, welcome. Good to see you too.
Great to have you here.
No, man, thank you so much for joining. Now, Walter and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago, and Walter is doing some great things that I wanted to make sure we can highlight. So I said, you know what? I said, because you let me tell my story, I think it's time for you to tell your story. So we had to get Walter on the podcast. So let's get this thing started. Chris, you want to cue it up here, my friend?
Sure. So, Walter, you are the founder of the worthy educator. So
Yes.
why don't we start with what that is?
Absolutely. So after 40 years in education, I retired this past June. And
Congratulations.
well, I sat still for about 5 months
Yeah.
and said, okay, that was good. And now let's get down to business. I love the work and knew that I needed to keep busy. And there were so many great connections, especially from working with member communities at ASCD. And people said to me, okay, you're retired. Can we still work? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I didn't want to lose those connections. I didn't want people think I was going off into the sunset and, leave the man alone. And so starting in July, we started bringing together people that wanted to continue. We didn't know what it would look like. I didn't really have any predetermined notion in my head. I wanted these people to lead and inform me on what their needs and interests are, what the community would be that would fulfill a niche that isn't already out there, because Lord knows there's plenty of good stuff out there. And it's evolved over the last, going on 5 months, I guess. And so the URL is theworthyeducator.com. And that's a great place to come to see what's available. But a lot of the work is going on through the relationships that we all have. And so whether it's through online professional learning, whether it's through writing and publishing, whether it's through advocacy work, those of us that are involved are working to have a voice in how we're going to transform education. And mind you, in July, things looked a lot rosier after the election this last month. We're bracing ourselves for some major change. And we're ready. We embrace it. Maybe more, maybe the challenge will help us have the impact we need to have. During the pandemic, there was so much hope that with all the disruption trying to manage the virus, that we would make some real change and not just go back after we were past the crisis stage of managing that. And yet, to a man and a woman, all of us are chagrined by the fact we've done nothing but backslide. And all the changes we were hoping to make in education, just the weight of the bureaucracy and all the systems in place, the change really hasn't happened. So
yeah, you're telling us.
yeah, it's just unbelievably frustrating, especially for younger educators. And by younger, keeping in mind I just retired, younger means like 40 and under for me. So, anyone who's still got a lot of aspiration and hope and idealism and wanting to have impact, these are going to be challenging times. And what might have seemed like challenges 5 months ago, that takes on a whole new meaning. The only other piece I'll add, and then I'll be quiet for 2 minutes. What I learned over time working with leaders in education was that when we get into education, there's all kinds of programs and supports and services, because we know that, coming into the classroom and moving up in a district, there are skills we need to acquire and we need experience. And then somewhere midway through our careers, we get to a point where, whether we're sitting in an office or we're still leading from the classroom, people just assume we know what we're doing. And all those programs and supports just kind of dissipate. And so as I work with leaders in education over the years, there's such a hunger for people mid to late career to still have a community, have connections, have a place they can go to with problems of practice, or just a safe place to unpack when things just aren't going well wherever they are. And so the Worthy Educators focus, this comes back to your original question, Chris, the Worthy Educators focus is actually mid to late career educators who are already established and doing the work, whatever that work is, but are looking for a place to find like-minded educators where they can go support each other, find ways to have new impact. And our ultimate focus is to help each build their own legacies. So when they're done, they can look back and say, I can see how I made a difference. And I'm proud as I finish up and retire that I was able to do that across the span of my career. So there you go.
And that is at theworthyeducator.com, correct?
Yes. And since you mentioned Blue Sky, we're also on Blue Sky, so you can find us on there.
Excellent. We will have a link to The Worthy Educator in our show notes, which are a swipe or a tap away, or go out to podcastpd.com/146. Now, Walter, You, through your bio, we learned that you have led at various levels,
Yes.
from the classroom to district leadership, and you've done some work at the national level as well.
Yep.
What are some lessons that you have learned about adapting your leadership style, or what other people could think about when adapting their leadership style at each of these levels? Because leadership looks different to different people. What's your best advice?
It is. I think because there's so many levels and it looks different for different people, I think the number one thing that all leaders need to do is lead authentically. So walking into a role and trying to imitate someone else, trying to fulfill the expectations of stakeholders, if it's not authentically you, you're setting yourself up for a lot of frustration. And even if you are successful, you'll never be as successful as if you're truly authentically who you are and you're able to communicate that. And that means your values, that means your style, it means those goals that you're able to espouse them. So when people see you, they know what your goals are. They know what you're about. You're not just a name or a face that, they can throw you in with every other building leader or district leader or classroom leader. And that's hard to come by. You look at all the noise out there on social media, and we're all out there trying to be our best selves. Those of us who are truly authentic seem to rise to the top and get the attention and get the followers. So that would be my number one first recommendation, is make sure you're good with yourself. You know who you are, and you can share that message with others who you want to follow and lead with you.
What were some of the ways that you did that through your career? Like what character quality about you did you find most easy to be authentic with?
I would say, well, it was always daunting because whenever you're faced with a new leadership opportunity, and this started in the classroom and being a team leader, you're having to speak to things that need to get done, whether or not they're popular and whether or not you have the funding for them and whether or not everyone else is on board. And so being able to speak clearly the truth of whatever the situation is, so that even if people are uncomfortable with what the truth is, they understand you're going to speak to that truth. And once you can clearly define that, you're able to build consensus, look for solutions, and eventually have the capacity to make it happen. And in the classroom, it's a great place to start because you're like in charge of your own little kingdom. And so you can make decisions in your classroom and lead and show that style and take risks. And it's kind of a safer place to start. But as you move up into district, I'm thinking, and I came up through EdTech. When I was in the classroom, I was the guy they would always send to learn the new technology because I'd go get the training and come back. And eventually that meant I was an EdTech guy. So when I got to the district level, that was like director of technology, director of information systems. And so when I got to those district level jobs, it was amazing how you walk into situations not even knowing what you're about to unravel. In one situation, day one, July 1st, I'm on the elevator with two staff members. I didn't know them yet. They didn't know me. And they were talking about how our new ERP system that was a wraparound for student data and payroll and HR and everything wasn't going to work. And it was July 1 and it was ready to go live. And they were told their job was to keep us off the front page of the newspaper. So I'm standing there and I get off the elevator and I go to my office, and you can imagine the first week I had on that job. But hey, we had really honest conversations. And that was July. By the end of October, we had the right people in place and we got the implementation corrected. And in the meantime, had workarounds. But I mean, that's what it takes. It takes courage. It takes clear thinking when you're faced with things that you had no idea were coming at you. And as you work through those things, not knowing what the answer is, having the people skills to say, let's just all get around the table and find out what the facts are. Let's find out who we need to get around the table who hasn't been in the conversation. And then be able to go to the top and say, here's the situation. Here's the facts. Here's what we're doing. So a lot of speaking the truth, I think, was my success. And eventually, as people would receive it, they would know, okay, well, he's leading, so I guess he's going to help us figure out what the answer is. And that's what worked. not comfortable. You don't feel like you're steady on your feet all the time. You're learning right along with everybody else. But if you're willing to lead by example and have the honest discussions, it's a great way to lead. It's a great way to grow.
Makes sense. I wish more people did that better.
Well, I will say firsthand, I was not, it was ungraceful. It wasn't, I'm glad we didn't have like handheld cameras back in the day where people could record you standing there trying to be graceful. But when you have people's trust and they know that even if you don't have the answers, you're going to talk straight and not blow smoke, that was half the battle for me.
So I'm guessing based on all those experiences that you just discussed and the things that you had going on as you were in the leadership roles, that allowed you to kind of go through ASCD, right? You had the Emerging Leader Program, which, I think was a great program for a lot of people who, we are very close to.
Yes.
I think now through that, and now you're Worthy Educator, how does that all tie in together? Where do you see, where do you see yourself in this role between those two?
I think the continuity of it, that, it's separated out from ASCD now because I retired, but the needs and the interest are still there. The people are still out there. And I think my success at ASCD was because I was in there with the people doing the work in schools and wanted to know what the work was and celebrate that work, connect them with other people. And so that work continues. And of course, being out on my own now, that also means I'm meeting a lot of other people that weren't in those programs who are also interested and are attracted to this. The real fascinating thing to me was, since you brought up emerging leaders, AJ, was, a lot of people through the years that came in through the program, the running joke got to be, because we had an annual leadership conference and we'd meet up every summer, and people would walk up to me and say, okay, I've emerged, now what? And we'd all laugh and, go on and have a great conference. I didn't have an answer. It was like, okay, yeah, maybe, my best answer was, well, maybe that's a misnaming of the program. Maybe we need a better name. But that really isn't the problem. The problem is, after you've emerged, for lack of a better description, you get to that middle of your career where you know what you're doing and you understand where you'd like to go. But all the supports and networks, you either build them yourself or you're just hanging out there. And everyone who reports to you just assumes you know what you're doing. And you shut your door. And in most cases, as people share with me, they hope everybody finds out that they hope nobody finds out that they don't know what they're doing, that they're learning right along with them. And so that's the work. That's the continuity, that even if you were an emerging leader in 2011, well, hello, it's 2024. It's going to be 25 in another month. And I still see you. I see the work. I understand you're still out there. And the Worthy Educator is building a home for you where you can come at no charge. We want you to come and simply feel like there's a home for you where you can continue to grow as a leader, ask questions, learn, share with others, and bring along the next generation as they come through, because this process continues.
Do they still do the emerging leader program? Because I still feel like you throw out 2011. I feel like there's still people out there who promote the fact that they were an emerging leader in 2011.
Yeah, the last class was 2023, and the program went on hiatus with the merger between ASCD and ISTE. And I know when I left, they were doing a lot of research and analysis on, well, do we continue it or do we morph it into something else? And what does that look like? And so I'm not sure where it is at this point, but I know for all those classes up until 2023 and including that I work with, that I'm so proud of the connections and that there are still people from all those classes that stay in touch and want to be involved. And I think that speaks volumes about the need and the hunger for this out there.
Let me throw this at you, Walter. And AJ, did you have something? Because I got something.
Go for yours. I'll kick back to mine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Walter, in your professional opinion, career behind you, new opportunities ahead of you.
Yes.
Do you think that young educators new to the profession, 5 years or less at this point in time.
Right.
Should they give consideration to becoming leaders in education? Should they consider becoming supervisors, principals, vice principals, etc., or not? What do you think?
It feels like there's a race to jump into leadership, that a lot of people put in maybe a couple years in the classroom and they're already looking to lead somehow. And I've loved this phenomenon of teacher leaders that has emerged over the last decade, people that know they want to stay in the classroom and can lead from the classroom. But that's not often the case. A lot of people assume, and I was guilty of this back in the day, that if you can move up, then you can have more impact. But I'm here to tell you, moving up from the classroom to building to district, all the way up, my last gig before I came to ASCD was an assistant superintendent in Arlington, Virginia. Very well financed, should have had everything at my fingertips I needed to have all the impact I wanted. I'm here to tell you, you have the same problems at that level that you have down at the building level. It's the politics, the money, the multiple considerations, and the decision making doesn't change. And so jumping out of the classroom and moving up isn't a panacea and doesn't answer a lot of questions. At the same token, I think education has changed. And I'm just going to put that out there, and you guys feel free to push back. But I don't think education, people in the classroom today, are facing the same proposition we had when we entered the classroom. I know I had a lot more freedom. I had a lot more ability to personalize things for kids. I wasn't being told, here's a curriculum and a script. I wasn't being told that I had to worry about test scores. And so when people come into the classroom now, maybe the more pertinent question is, what makes them stay? If they want to make a difference with kids, and they want to work with their families and work with their community, and they have that passion we all had coming into education, what makes them stick around if everything is so controlled and there's so little room to personalize and so little room to be creative, that maybe they're jumping to leadership because it's a way out of the classroom, just thinking they'll have more room to show their stuff if they're not just, being told this is what you have to teach and this is when you have to teach it. So I think that's an issue. And when I talk to people working with young teachers coming in, they're just saying it's very hard to prepare them and then to keep them, because the proposition for them is such a tough one. It's not the same profession it was when we were in the classroom.
Yeah, there's no denying that. I've had the privilege to work with a number of student teachers over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
And so I'm still in direct contact with those kids.
Yep.
And, they're not struggling, but, it's some of the stories they tell me about, trying to get into their schools or, to find jobs in general, which is weird because, hey, everywhere you look, there's a teacher shortage, and yet people can't get hired.
Right.
There's so much out there, and I was just curious, should they consider it, or not these specific people, but
yeah.
I mean, I've given up on it personally.
It's
I have
really
no
hard.
desire to climb the ladder.
It's such a logjam that I think a lot of people are hoping for disruption. I think a lot of people are hoping we can somehow break this up and rethink the whole structure, because there's such gridlock at so many levels that to be able to make true lasting change that's going to help kids, individual kids in a classroom who may have special needs or may come from unique circumstances, may come from other cultures, may be worrying about things like citizenship and all those things that come into play that we just saw in the election, that the way things are set up, it's not set up for success for the kids or the educators. Everyone's frustrated.
I think there's so many things you just hit on there, Walter, that it's so different. When I think about 14 years ago,
Yep.
I was still in the classroom and I said to myself, I'm never going to do this. 2 years later, I'm looking for, admin jobs, and I felt I was making a good impact, strong impact in my classroom, and realizing through PD that I was making a different impact in a different way. And I was like, okay, it's time after that much, that many years in
Right?
a classroom. I was ready
Yeah.
to move up, but now I'm up, and like I like it, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
You're not making the impact you think you're going to make, right?
No.
You're definitely building people up. You're definitely helping students, but you're not doing what you did in the classroom.
No.
And now, and in today's education, you're kind of the bad guy, because
Yes.
you're reporting to the test scores, and you're reporting to the needs of the families, and you're reporting on this, and telling people a lot more bad news.
Yeah.
You're still trying to figure out how to make that impact. And I think you hit on something, that really resonates with me. This is a lonely job,
It is.
and we want people to connect. And you mentioned that the goal here for you with the Worthy Educator is to get people to connect and kind of show what's going on around you.
Right.
Like, what? Because look, let me rewind this.
Yeah.
When Chris and I started this, 2016 with Stacy, we were at the height of connected educators doing great things together. I
Yes.
feel like over time we've lost that, and I'm glad you're bringing it back with the Worthy Educator, because I really think
Yeah.
it's meaningful. So
Yes.
what can people be doing to reconnect and share these ideas that we had lost over the past 4 or 5 years now?
Well, I think, because we're just launching these last few months, the
Mm-hmm.
examples are immediate, but I don't think they reflect the potential for capacity. So right now, we have specific connected educators that are coming to me and saying, I would like to lead on this. So we have Sylvia Breyer-Bird out of Buenos Aires, who is passionate about the next generation of leaders. And she's going to offer a 3-event series in the new year on next gen leaders. We have Isabel Bazada Jones out of Ohio, who is passionate about advocacy, and she's going to lead 4 events over a couple of months on educator advocacy training, so that we're able to impart the skills and the knowledge and connect people with other people who are really passionate about advocating, not the big spanning testifying in front of education committees, but what you can do grassroots in your own district with your school board, and then build from there as you acquire the skills and the practice. And then we have Kwame Safaro-Mensah, who's just releasing a new book like last week on learning to relearn. He's big into DEI and equity and access, and he's going to offer a month-long book study in February.
That's awesome.
And the skills. And so early on, the short answer is, we're going to listen to these people who are coming to us, who are known practitioners and leaders on the things they're passionate about, and say, yeah, we'll provide you the space, we'll do all the support and back-end logistics, and elevate you, promote it, invite people, and slowly build a community based on what we're being shown as high interest. So there's that. The other pieces are, we do have leader communities. So we have what we call Worthy Educator leaders. We also have champions. And we have a coaching program, so that as these people come to us, whether they fit into a specific niche or community, or whether they just want to be able to work with myself and Gretchen Oltman out of Creighton University, who does all their leadership work at the postgraduate level, we sit down and do one-on-ones and group coaching with these folks, so that as they want to start unpacking their journey and reflecting on where they are in their career and regrouping, they feel like they're getting personalized, individualized attention from people who really care and who have been there, so they understand what the journey is all about and what's at stake, and can help re-energize and then refocus on what they'd like to do in this next half of their career. Okay, here's everything. Here's where you are. Here's how you got here. Here's what you're still passionate about. How can we set up a plan for you to, for the next half of your career, get to the finish line and have that legacy that we talk about? So multiple avenues, multiple ways, and very organic at this point.
Absolutely.
Walter, again, congratulations on reaching, I don't want to say the finish line, but you like you say, you're recently retired.
Yeah.
And you've talked a little bit tonight that educators should consider their legacy, and some of what you're doing with the Worthy Educator will help educators and leaders kind of figure that out.
Yes.
You've had some time to reflect on your career in the last, 5 or 6 months or so.
Yep.
What do you feel your legacy is from your main career in education?
I think it's been connecting and building relationships. I think that all my aspirations previously about ed tech revolutionizing everything and then watching all the money just pour in and how it just messed up all our values. And, we got people chasing the money and we got people still believing in the technology and all that. It just got really messed up. But when I retired and I look back, what really stuck with me was when anybody talked to me, they were like, "You're such a connector. You know how to connect people, the right people, kind of like intuitively. Like you just know who should be talking to who." And it's probably true because I don't give it a great deal of thought. I just know a lot of great people. And when I'm in the middle of a conversation and I'm like, "Oh, you need to talk to this person, and I'm going to connect you with this person." So to me, what came out of it all, after all the politics and money and everything else, the relationships are what made me successful. And being able to say at the end of the day, no matter who I could think of or talk to or look back on, that I had impact with that person because we had a relationship. And it went beyond just a title or a role. They knew who I was. Getting back to the beginning of this conversation, they knew me authentically. Take it or leave it. This is Walter. And it served us well because I watched them grow and, move on in their careers. And to this day, I still love celebrating people who have success and getting their names out there and saying, "Hey, look at this, check this out, meet this person." It's one of the few things in education that I think are still pristine. If you can develop relationships and bring people together, that kind of energy coming together can still make things happen, can still create change, even while we're trying to figure out how to break this open and reform some things and make it a better institution.
I think there's so much there. I mean, just listening to your story and checking out the website. I mean, Chris just hit on it. On the website, I'm just going to read what it says here. On the final day of your career, when you close your office door, that last time, what do you want your legacy to be? And like we always talk about legacy. You just spoke about legacy and how you are a connector and all the great things. And like there's so much to education right now that I think, unfortunately, we're missing out in a lot of areas right now.
Yeah.
When you think about that, I say missing out because I feel like we're not as connected. I feel like a lot of educators are not on the same page anymore. I feel like with the world where it's at, there's a lot of people who are very different from each other and working among each other and just not settling well.
Exactly.
What is the advice you'd give to I'm going to give you three here: the aspiring leader, the mid-career leader, someone like me, and the leader who's just about to bring it home and say, "I've done my part. Here's my legacy." What's the message for those three groups?
You know what? I think it's consistent across all three. Focus on the work. There's going to be all kinds of distractions that come along that try to lure you away into attention and money and attempts at power and fame, none of the things we got into education for, but all these things that lure you away. If you focus on the work, if you know what the work is for you, and it could be making a difference with kids one-on-one all the way up through the ranks, focus on the work doesn't change. And even when everything around you changes and you're thinking, how do I hold on tight and just stay grounded? The answer is focus on that work. Because honestly, that when people think of me anymore, when they do think of me, they think of the work I did. It's not about, whether I got this award or whether I had that job. It's the work I did that they felt it made a difference for them or gave them an opportunity to build on it and continue and have success themselves. So wherever you are, whatever stage in your career, on your leadership journey, do not walk away from the work. The work is what's going to save you. It's going to define you. And it's going to allow you at the end, when you finally close your door that last day, to say, I was successful.
Well said. Well
Walter,
said.
that is a great message. I love it. So, Walter McKenzie is the founder of The Worthy Educator. You can find it at theworthyeducator.com. That is going to be in our show notes, a swipe or a tap away where you're listening right now. Or you can go right out to our website, podcastpd.com/146. We will have Walter's bio there, so you can connect with him, email him, go to The Worthy Educator. Walter, you said it was free?
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. Everybody knows it's my favorite four-letter F word, so go take advantage. theworthyeducator.com. Walter, do you listen to podcasts?
I do.
All right. Stick around for our next segment where we talk about some podcasts we've been listening to, and that is going to happen right now. AJ, that gives you time, so let's do it. All right. Before we say goodbye to Walter and end this episode of the podcast, we like to share a podcast or two that we've been listening to, learning from, etc., etc. AJ, what is something you have listened to recently that other people should check out?
Man, I love how you just threw me in there first when you knew I haven't been listening to podcasts lately. But I guess I can throw one. I'll throw one. I'll give a little shout out, right? So a local podcast, the NJAEL, the New Jersey Association of Educational Leaders, has a new-ish podcast. It's been around for a couple of months now, and they are really kind of digging into a lot of great leaders throughout New Jersey. So I'm looking at some of the episodes recently that I've caught on just from knowing a few people. I like the local feel of superintendents and leaders for this podcast. I'm not going to pick one for you. Like I said, this is what I've been kind of listening to because it has that local flair for me. But there's been some great podcasts. I'm trying to find the one I actually listen to. I will give you one. There's one podcast I dove into. This is from August, and it's Superintendent Eric Crespo on AI in education. And, I know AI right now is definitely a hot topic, but listening to the point of view of a superintendent and how they manage AI within their district, which is a large district where he is here in New Jersey. He's a superintendent of Weehawken. I think listening to him and kind of understand AI and how it is unique to schools and how there are several positives, might be beneficial to people who are seeing it in a different light. So, I'll give you that episode right there. Superintendent Eric Crespo on AI and education. That's NJAEL, the Leader's Edge podcast from August 13th. And we'll put that in the show notes for you all to give a listen.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to share not a podcast, but I recently watched a movie on Disney Plus that will, as an educator, have you thinking some things and having some feelings. And if you're also a parent, you will certainly have some feelings and be thinking some things. And watch this with my boys. And on Disney Plus, we watched Out of My Mind. I don't know if you had seen it yet, or Walter, if you have seen this.
No.
Believe it's based on a book, according to my oldest son. But here's the synopsis. Melody Brooks is navigating 6th grade as a nonverbal wheelchair user who has cerebral palsy. With the help of some assistive technology and her devoted allies, Melody shows that what she has to say is more important than how she says it. I was on the verge of tears at least 20 times during this hour and 50-minute movie. And obviously there's a big education component, student voice, special education, what good teaching looks like, what administration looks like. And I think it is a worthy watch, especially if you work in the field of education. So that is Out of My Mind on Disney Plus.
Wow, that sounds powerful. Check that one out.
All right, Walter. What can you
Yes.
share with us about podcasts that you listen to?
Well, I've been a big fan for a long time of Amanda Kulova. She's an arts educator out of Mississippi, works with the State Arts Council there. She's on the board, and she's just a dynamo on arts integration, which, yes, we all know what that means, what pops in our head when we hear that. But really shaking things up because she's really strong in instruction. She's really strong on working with teachers in the classroom. Art is not a separate special in the course of a child's education. And she's going to be coming to the Worthy Educator in the new year to do an Educator's Unfiltered podcast starting in February 2025. So I'm going to do a shameless plug for that because I'm such a big fan of hers and so thrilled that she's offered to do this through the Worthy Educator. And the idea is bringing in practitioners to talk about hot topics, but not because they're experts, not because, they're pushing a book or trying to, promote something, but because they're going to bring in a different point of view and the practitioner's point of view and have real conversation. So we're really excited. We've already got, I think, 11 episodes planned. We'll start recording in the new year and pushing it out and hoping people will give it a listen.
Excellent. We'll do our part to promote it.
Thank you.
We like podcasts around here.
I can tell.
All right. So, again, hit up our show notes, theworthyeducator.com. Get connected with Walter McKenzie. Thank you for being with us, Walter. And before we go, we just want to let you know that this is our 11th episode of the year. Next month is December. And here is our challenge not challenge, but listener, here's what we want to do. We want to do an episode that is you telling us your favorite podcast or podcasts for the year. Tell us about a favorite episode you listen to of a podcast or give us a podcast recommendation. Go to podcastpd.com, send us a voicemail, and let us know who you are, what you do in education, and just answer the question, my favorite podcast is, and then tell us. Let us know where we can find it. Let us know what you like about it. And we will put that together as our December episode. And AJ and I will be back live at the end of January 2025. So, AJ, happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that good stuff. Because you don't text me, so I won't talk to you till the end of January.
Maybe after that.
Maybe, yes.
Bad guy. Put me a bad guy. I'll text Walter instead. I have his number.
There you go.
There you go.
You got me.
I'll just text Walter.
All right. Walter, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
All right.
Walter. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Talk soon.
All right. Everybody, we'll see you in January.